Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to Budapest. Very glad to be with you from the United States. 15 minutes is not really enough time to do this topic justice, but we're going to hit the high points. How many of you in this room have done advocacy, or I don't like the term lobbying, but how many have done advocacy for sorghum or millets? How many of you consider yourselves to be advocates? Next question, does advocacy only happen in government institutions? No. Does it only happen in corporate boardrooms? No? Can it happen in an elevator?
Yes.
Yeah? Can it happen at the airport? So that's the point I really want to make, is that we're really called, for this industry, which is nascent in many respects, we're really called to always be advocating. And I think that's one of the things that we do really well. So I'm the CEO of the Sorghum United Foundation. We're a global organization, stood up the last 3 years ago. In 3 years, we've touched well over 100,000 people on every continent. We have a lot of work in Africa and Southeast Asia, but also in South America, and we're working on some things in North America as well. In that 3 years, I've been to 41 different countries doing this work. I sit on a committee at the USDA that advises ag trade policy, and I sit on 2 committees at the United Nations FAO, Food and Ag Organization. One is an advisory committee to the Committee on Food Security, and the other is a new bioeconomy for sustainable food and agriculture. So we're really right in the heart of these conversations globally. We can go to the next slide. So just a little bit about who we are before we talk about the advocacy part, because I feel like if you don't know who you're talking to or why they matter, you're probably not going to pay attention. So really what Sorghum United does, and I'm not going to read off the slides, I assume you're an intelligent person, you can read as well. I'm happy to give the presentation to anybody who would like it, by the way, afterwards. But what we really do is facilitate producer resources. We don't sell anything, we don't make anything ourselves, but we build networks. We connect people locally with the goal of promoting local value addition for their sorghum. By the way, there was a question earlier about the health piece of this. I very much agree that having a panel or a global association of nutritionists and folks who are in the medical field looking at the sorghum and millets as food for health, that's absolutely one thing we should do. We do reach out to those people as well. So all points within the sorghum value chain, and the goal is to create not only new markets for sorghum, but also to create jobs locally, improve health benefits locally through local production, and just generally lift up otherwise impoverished communities. We can go on to the next one here. This is just a little bit about our impact. We're working on what we call fields market trials. As you know, farmers all around the world are really good at growing a crop. They're not always as good at doing the value addition. And the problem is, without the value addition, you have a commodity. A commodity, you cannot control the price. So teaching them how to not only make products, but then also run businesses, and involving the entire community within those solutions is really what we do. Okay, now let's get to the meat of the conversation here. I left this slide in, and this is more germane to what we're doing, but the reason I've left it in here is because before we have a conversation about advocacy, we have to understand what the systems look like right now. We have to understand where the pain points are and what the challenges are. And so this is really more germane to our organization. But you can see, we've done some work on what these challenges are around transportation, or market barriers, training, and then what the outcomes are. So again, being informed on your own part before you're going and doing advocacy is probably the most important thing. You go to the next slide. All right, now let's get to it. In addition to the committees I sit on, I also spent 5 years working on Capitol Hill in the US. So I've been on both sides of the lobbying table, and I hope that this offers a little bit of a unique perspective. it's really about knowing your audience. You know, what's important to your listener? Are they interested in sorghum? Probably not. Do they know what sorghum is? Probably not. But are there things that sorghum and millets touch and can be a solution for that they are interested in? Most likely. I like this one. Be professional but personable. Some people, they go into these meetings, so many go into these meetings with staffers or members or whoever they might be, and you know, they're so stiff and they're so professional. And I gotta tell you, as somebody who sat on the other side of the table, that makes for some really long meetings, some really long days. So read the room. You know, if it's a person you feel like, you know, maybe you could break the ice with a little joke, that's okay. It's not unprofessional. It's part of connecting. And frankly, most of my meetings, I'll start off with a little bit of humor, because if you can make them laugh, then all of a sudden, you know, they've taken down that wall, and you can have a conversation. Remember, they're just people on the other side of that table. This is a big one too. Bring solutions, not problems. You know, people will go, when I worked for Congressman, you know, people come in and they have all these sad stories, and they, you know, say, oh, we need money for money, right? And they bring you the problem, but they don't bring you the solution. Now, what's really unique about sorghum and millets, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, is we're positioned to bring a lot of solutions, right? So again, it doesn't matter if they care about sorghum and millets, doesn't matter if they know what they are. We bring solutions to problems that are important to these people as well as their demographics. And that, yeah, again, emotional stories, important, illustrative. I'm not saying don't use them, and that makes a nice personal connection as well, but don't rely on them. I mean, you and every other advocacy organization in the world is going to go in there and talk about, you know, some sad story. Don't rely solely on that. Have a proposal to leave with the listener. Oftentimes when you're meeting with somebody, whether it's in the corporate world or on Capitol Hill in the US, or even in Brussels, I suppose, you're not necessarily going to meet with the member or the decision maker. You're going to meet with a member of staff. And that's okay, because usually, as a former staffer, I'll tell you, it's usually the staff members that get things done, right? So that's all right. Don't feel discouraged, but have a professional proposal in a binder or something that you can leave. That way you're not solely relying on that staff member's memory and account and recollection of the meeting to get the message across to the member. Remember the rules regarding nonprofits. In the US, we're a 501c3, and that means that we are not able to do lobbying as Sorghum United Foundation. That's against the rules. Every country is going to be a little bit different on that. When we do our lobbying, it's on the Blum side, which is our LLC arm, our private sector arm. But just make sure you don't get yourself in trouble. And then leverage media opportunities. We do a lot of media. We did a live BBC a couple of years ago from Rome. I think we just got a Google alert yesterday from another publication that we were in. But you know, that's where you're going to reach the most people. When I worked for a member of Congress, one thing that he would say when we were out doing outreach was the importance of doing media along with the community visits, because he says in the same amount of time, I could reach 5 people or I could reach 50,000 people, right? So leverage the media at the same time. All right, next slide, please. Okay, this is what I meant by issue-based advocacy. These are the solutions that we can bring. So frame the problem, position the solution. Climate change, whether that's soil health, water conservation, biodiversity, the fact that there are sometimes less frequent rains, but more intense rains, more intense drought. These are things that sorghum and millets are positioned to address, because as you all know in this room, these are drought-tolerant grains. They have that large root biomass, which not only sequesters more carbon in the soil, which, by the way, somebody said something about needing to quantify that. We are actually invested in a project with the University of India to work on that quantification. So maybe here in a couple of years we'll have that. We were working with the carbon credit companies to start providing a platform to our farmers around the world so they can access those markets and leverage them better. But we all know that story, so talk about that story. If they're interested in climate change, the person you're talking to, you've got tools in your toolbox in regard to sorghum and millets. Nutrition and food security, as we talked earlier about the health benefits, there's a ton of research out there. There's a ton of research on the benefits of sorghum millets in regard to, in particular, reduction of heart disease, diabetes management, anti-inflammatory properties, and many more. You don't have to throw a rock very far to find a peer-reviewed research paper talking about these things. So leverage those as well. And again, yes, working with the medical community and the nutritionists, that's a top priority. Economic development and circular bioeconomy. Now, circular bioeconomy is a buzzword right now. Everybody's interested in circular bioeconomy, particularly in Europe. Okay? But what does that actually mean? And that's, we spent 3 days in Rome talking about what the definition of this might be at our most recent committee meeting. But what it really comes down to is local economies. I mean, we're talking about global solutions for food systems, okay? But we're talking about them being implemented at the local level. And somebody mentioned earlier, I think in the last panel, we were talking about the challenges with the global food industry. It takes investment to change machinery around and marketing and all this stuff. But I think that's, in every challenge there's an opportunity. And the opportunity in that is that if the large global food companies that work on a commodity basis for our farmers, if they're not going to lead the charge, the demand, to meet the demand, I should say, then there's an opportunity for SMEs, the small medium enterprises, and locally produced products within local markets. That's the opportunity. So the farmers, we don't want farmers selling a commodity, not when it comes to sorghum and millets. We want them selling a value-added product, right? And that's not to say commodity markets are bad, they're not, right? But within a cropping system, if you can mitigate your commodity marketing risk by local value addition in one of those grains, then that's better for the farmer, it's better for the local economy, it's better for everybody. And that's really what we advocate. The opportunity is the fact that the big guys aren't really looking at sorghum and millets in a realistic way. And that's actually an opportunity for farmers around the world. Carbon sequestration, we talked about this already. And then the gluten-free and non-GMO. Now, here's what I'd like to mention about this. To say something is gluten-free is not to say gluten is bad. To say that something is non-GMO is not to say that GMO is bad, all right? But they are market differentiators for a product, right? In the US, I can buy a bottle of water and it says non-GMO. I know, right? Of course it's non-GMO, it's water. But people will look for that on the label, right? They will. It sounds silly, but if you've got a product that is gluten-free and non-GMO and healthy and sustainable, and you've got people who want to buy those qualities, they want to buy those qualities, then advertise it, sell it to them. People will be willing, first of all, people will buy a story before they ever buy a product, right? So tell them the story before you tell them the product. That's the point. And we'll talk about that a little more when we talk about our consumer education here. We can go to the next slide. As far as policy goes, we're at a juncture where we actually need, I believe, a holistic approach to how we look at policy, because it's not just money for breeding research. It's producer resources around the world. A lot of places I go, even in the US, if they haven't grown sorghum in a generation or ever, right, they don't know how to do it. They don't know the agronomy. Now, there's some great resources that exist out on the market already. It's a question of getting those disseminated. And a lot of researchers I talk to around the world, the number one problem they all have is that they can do great research in the lab, they can produce a wonderful paper that is fantastic, but disseminating that information to the average farmer is a challenge. In the US, we have the extension programs. Some places around the world, these extension programs are really strong. Other places are completely non-existent, right? So finding ways to get that information out there. I think in a digital world, it's much easier for us to do that, but we still have to work on it, all right? Consumer awareness campaigns, market development. I always like to tell people, I grew up on a farm, and I will tell you, I will never ask a farmer to grow a product that they can't sell for a revenue. Okay, I'm just not going to. So we can have, in the US, for example, we have policy at the federal level for sustainability and incentives and whatever. But we're asking farmers to grow a crop that maybe they don't have a high value market for, and that's a problem, right? So environmental sustainability, I believe, has to start with economic sustainability, right? So markets development, while we're creating the products, creating the research, at the same time we need to be creating the demand. Investment and quantification for those environmental benefits. I know there's a lot of investment from the USDA in the US on the quantification of carbon sequestration, things like that. Like I said, we're working on a project in India as well. But to say that we're sequestering more carbon, for example, is great, but to be able to show numbers with it is much, much more meaningful. Entrepreneurial incentives, not only for product development, but also for those small, medium enterprise startups. This is really important. Like I mentioned, in the 41 countries I've been to in the last few years, most of the folks who are transforming sorghum or making a product with it, they're those small and medium enterprises. Every country has different incentives and opportunities for the SMEs, some better than others. One example, again, I'll go back to India. India has a great incentive for capital loan forgiveness, I should say, for things like equipment. But there's no incentives, there's no write-off for operational expenses, right? This makes it difficult. So every country has those challenges. I'm sure Europe and the EU have those same challenges. Identifying what those are. But if these are not the biggest players in the space, but the most numerous players in the space, we need to be doing what we can to support them and encouraging new entrepreneurs to get into the field. And then producer incentives for diversified cropping systems. Now, a big part of the reason I think a lot of us are here talking about sorghum and millets is because we understand that our global food system, which prioritizes only a few grains, has led to monoculture cropping systems in many areas. Where I live, on the farm, when I grew up, we had sorghum, beans, and wheat. But for the last 35 years, it's all been maize on soybean, right? We don't want that to be just sorghum and sorghum and sorghum either, right? It's about crop diversification. That's when we have healthy systems. And so producers need to be incentivized to do that. If tomorrow, Nestle and Pepsi Cola and all these other companies decided they were going to switch wholeheartedly into sorghum, you're going to have a lot of farmers that are only going to want to grow sorghum. And I don't think that's good either. That's not ideal. So providing those incentives to keep things in balance is really important. Move on to the next slide. The next couple slides are just some graphics. Now the reason I put these in here is because when you're preparing those proposals, those reports, for your lawmaker, your CEO, whoever it is you're talking to, just know that there's some excellent infographics that are out there. These ones I'll run through quickly. I use these a lot. The one on the right, or I guess your left, is done by New Mexico State University. And it shows the water table within 4 seasons, 4 cycles of crops. You've got a cover crop, and you can see that water table dips down. The blue is the level of the water, of course. And then it's followed by sorghum. And sorghum not only uses less water, but actually replenishes the water table. And then it goes to cover crop again, dips down further, and then you've got sorghum again bringing it back up. So it's a great way to illustrate how sorghum being water conservative, how it actually looks in a graph. The health benefits. Now, this one's really hard to see from far away. Again, I can send this presentation to anybody who would like it, all right? But when we're talking saying, oh, it's healthier, and we have these health benefits, I'm sure Monia has covered this in depth in her presentations as well. But here, this one actually covers a number of different millets, including sorghum, and then compares corn, rice, and wheat also with proteins and the iron, calcium, all those things. So again, great way to show a nutritionist or a physician in cold hard numbers what that healthier benefit means. Next slide. This one over here with the beautiful sorghum picture that I took, and I think I had this at the last Sorghum Congress as well, but this is 2019 data, so it's meant just to be illustrative, right? But people always ask wherever I go, what are the markets for sorghum? Where do I sell, right? And the thing I like to remind them is, if you've got people eating in your community, you've got your market right there, right? Look at what's selling in the market and change the formulation to include sorghum and millets, right? Whether that's exclusively or within a blend. And to show them that those markets do exist, this global data for the traits of sorghum and millets that people are interested in, the consumers are interested in, we can actually show that there's global value and that it's growing. So consumers are interested in things like functional foods, otherwise clean labeling, that sort of a thing. In 2019, that global value was almost $175 billion with a compound annual growth rate of 7.7%. That's only gone up in the last few years. Non-GMO, we talked about that also, almost $1 billion. Compound annual growth rate for that one, 16.5%. In your investment portfolios, raise your hand if you would like 16.5% compound annual growth every year. I sure would. Right. Sure. Yeah, I know, right? How do we get that? So again, it's a question, the point I'm trying to make, again, not to read these off, we've got ethically labeled as well as gluten-free. The point is, it's about telling your story, leveraging the story of sorghum and millets. I cannot say this enough. I tell my team this all the time. Nobody cares about sorghum and millets outside of agriculture. They don't. Tell the story without mentioning the story, so to speak, right? Talk about what they care about, and then position sorghum and millets as that right solution, because it is. And then we talk about the different uses. Now, we do a lot of work in the food space globally because I believe that that's the highest valued market for sorghum farmers. But that's not to discount other uses. This is a number of uses, just off the top of my head, that sorghum can be used for, particularly in the food space. But again, as food, feed, fuel, and fiber. In fact, we tell our farmers that if they're doing this correctly, they should be able to get 3 harvests off their sorghum, right? You should be able to harvest the grain. You should then be able to go back and harvest the stalk. When you decorticate the stalk, you can actually make things like textiles or temporary building materials. And this is being done even in rural Kenya with banana. We can do the same thing with sorghum. And then the carbon market. Once we fully establish that, so those farmers can leverage the additional benefits of carbon sequestration of sorghum, there should be 3 harvests off this crop if we do it correctly. Let's go on to the next slide. All right, now this is what I get really excited about. I get excited about everything I do. But I mentioned the markets development piece. Consumers cannot request a product if they don't know it exists, right? Also, the moment that we say agriculture, the average consumer tunes out and they say, I'm not involved in agriculture, I don't need to listen. You're not going to necessarily reach those older people. They're kind of like this is my routine, like I like my Belgian waffles, and I like my pancakes and bread and whatever. You're not going to change that. But reaching out to the next generation of leaders, the young people, now that's really important. So we've developed what we call the Sorghum Squad. It's a series of comic books, actually. We have 3 chapters published. We have another almost finished. And they're intended for classrooms, but they're fun. They're not just educational. They're putting sorghum in particular in the context of climate change, in the context of food security, nutrition security, in the context of health, what it looks like around the world. Right? In fact, these names you see up here, these are all different names for sorghum. In India, it's jowar. Ethiopia, parts of Africa, mashila. Milo in the US, right? So it's intended to show people that these grains, regardless of what we're calling them, are the same thing. And the reason I came up with this, by the way, is because when I would go on trade missions, depending on where I was in the world, if I said sorghum, They didn't know what the heck I was talking about. We'd waste half the meeting talking about that. So that's the point of this. But they're an adventure series. Again, I'm a big comic book nerd, so I describe it as like Indiana Jones meets Captain Planet. Again, really, really good opportunity for classrooms. And it checks, most importantly, it checks a lot of the educational curricular boxes. Again, things like diversity, cultural awareness, history, all of this is packed in there, right? And also, we think, I heard somebody else say the need for government policies to support consumer education. This is available for that. We can contract these out to public health campaigns within governments, within organizations. That would actually be a really good funding source that would help us do the work that we do in our foundation. We can go to the next slide. Oh, no, you've already had. Sorghum, of course, is what you are calling sorghum in Europe. And then Atlas is just kind of the everyman character that the readers can latch onto. Those are the characters here. You can go on to the next one. And it's not just books. These are the 3 books that are published, but we actually have a video game now as well. The first level is available on the app stores, both Apple and Android. It's really beautifully done. It's very expensive to do, so we haven't done the second yet. But again, the point is, I started this out by saying, know your audience. This is your audience. This is the audience that's going to adopt these new things moving forward, right? Even college-age kids, they love to try new things. So, you don't have to do that. But you kind of get a sense. Meeting the people you're talking to where they are, that's the point. All right, I think we can go to the next one. I'm not sure how we're doing on time. Go to the next slide. There we go. Okay. So in conclusion, I'm not going to read this to you, but just to reiterate, when we're talking to policy professionals, policy makers, whether it's in the government, whether it's in the private sector, wherever it is, we need to be thinking about, again, knowing your audience, know what's interesting to them, right? So you can do a little research ahead of time. And then come prepared with the data and the information that positions sorghum not as the solution, but a part of the solution. Now that's really important. And one thing that I always talk about when I'm presenting to people is that there's room on the plate for everyone, right? Where I live in Nebraska, the corn husker state, right? One of the largest producers, I think the second largest producer of corn in the U.S. When you talk about the crop, any crop other than corn and soybeans, you get met with, oh, I don't know, that's an alternative crop, I don't think I want to do that, right? We're not going to make any headways in industry by demonizing other parts of agriculture, whether it's intentional or unintentional, okay? So we like corn, we like rice, we like maize, sure. But there's room on that plate once a week. There's room within the cropping systems. There's room within the biofuels, biofiber. There's room for more than what we have out there right now, and there's benefits to doing so. That's really, really important. It's a holistic approach. It's one that is inclusive, and that's really important because I hate to tell you, our industry's not that big. And if we pick a fight with corn or rice or soybean, we won't win. We don't have the pockets deep enough for it, right? So finding ways to work together and bringing those people on board with us is really, really important. So with that, that's my last slide. I know we're short on time. I know this is the last presentation before everybody's going to go network, have some lunch. So I don't want to hold you any longer, but I will take questions if you have them. Otherwise, you can also find me. I'm here the rest of the day and through tomorrow morning. My contact information is there. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take two.